welcome back from San Diego Comic-Con. You had a triumphant week over there at Comic-Con International, and welcome back. I missed you while you were gone.
I missed you as well. It's been like a week and a half, 2 weeks since we've talked because you were traveling beforehand. I went to Comic-Con, was traveling. It's two buddies that haven't spoken in 2 weeks.
I know we've got a lot to catch up on. How did you do? Give me the headline.
I got a lot. Well, I want to download you a lot. Download you. That sounds terrible. Oh, Brad, I want to download you.
I want to download you so bad.
I want to download you so bad. No, I have a lot that I want to share with you about Comic-Con this week, but I wanted specifically to tell you because I know you will appreciate this, that we had a lot of people come up to the booth this weekend and say how much they're enjoying the podcast, and that was so delightful to hear. Oh my God, it was amazing. It was so people of all ages, of all types of cartoonists from all over the world, and non-cartoonists, by the way, from all over the world. It's just I wanted to pass that along to you because it made my weekend. It was so nice to hear.
Wow, that's really cool. That's the one thing that makes me kind of think about going out there next year. Is I would love to. I don't have a whole lot of opportunity to meet ComicLab listeners, and if we did something like a live show next year, I think I would definitely break my own rule and make the flight out there for that one.
I think we got to break your rule and get you out next year. It would be so fun to have you. Fun to have you in general because how fun are you at Comic-Con? And two, doing a live show at Comic-Con would just be the cat's pajamas. I think that would be so fun. Wow, that was a very Brad Geiger phrase. I just said the cat's pajamas.
The cat's... Well, except that from the Midwest, no one says pajamas. They're the cat's pajamas.
Pajamas?
Pajamas. You got to put that Midwestern A on there. Pajamas.
You got to give it a little spin. All right.
Yeah.
I have to share this with you, though. So among all the different people that came up to talk about ComicLab and how they like the show, Beth and I were standing at the booth, and a really nice young couple, small family, came up to the booth and said, "We love the show. In fact, we both love listening to the show." And I said, "Oh, that's really nice that you're both enjoying it. That's great. How fun." They're like, "Oh, yeah, we laugh together with like a lot of shared jokes now because of the podcast." I was like, "Oh, that's wonderful." And then I don't remember if it was the man or the woman. I think it was the wife that said, "Actually, yeah, the podcast has helped our marriage." And
Really?
I of course took the nice compliment, but I thought about that phrase a lot for the rest of the day. Like, the podcast has helped our marriage. And
oh my God.
I had a lot of different iterating jokes in my mind about what that could mean, but the funniest one that came to my mind was like, yeah, the podcast has helped us sexually. That like it's Brad's voice has gotten us where we need to go.
That's the only one that came to my mind.
Oh, good. So you had the same reaction I did. I just thought that was delightful. The podcast has helped our marriage. And I was like, what? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. That's delightful.
I wonder if we're getting them in the mood right now.
Oh God! Now I'm self-conscious. Now I can't enjoy recording a podcast with you.
You know what I think it is? This has just hit me because I just realized there's a piece to this puzzle that I was missing. They have young kids, right?
They had one little one, yeah.
Okay, so they've got a young kid. Here. You're closer to this than I am because
wait a minute, hold on. I think I see where you're going with this, Brad. We started this show about 17 months ago. Is that what you're saying?
Well, there's another piece of the puzzle.
And the baby was about 9 months old, Brad. It's all coming together.
God. Oh my gosh. That we kicked things off, and now we're now we're going right along the process with them because, as you know, when you got little kids, it's really hard to get a little alone time with your spouse because the kid's always knocking on the door. Mom, what's going on? Where are you guys? It's you gotta count. You gotta really count on nap time. You got to get them down for a really good deep nap, or else you're sunk. you know? And so what I'm thinking they do is they've given up on the nap time thing, and they just tell the kid, hey, we're going to listen to this show that the kid has no interest in listening to. They turn us up really loud. They get a good, what do we do for a show? About 45 minutes to an hour? They get a good hour-long private time. And meanwhile, any of the sounds that might be emanating from the room are covered up by me braying like a jackass half the time.
I like the idea that we're putting a child to sleep and therefore saving a marriage. That's great.
Yes. Because the kid's out there going like, these guys are ridiculous. I don't want to listen to this, and just goes off to sleep. And then, the parents can have some quality time together.
And then nature takes its course. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on that note, I'm going to say hello, everybody, and welcome to ComicLab, the show about making comics
and making a living from comics. I'm Brad Geiger, editor of webcomics.com and cartoonist of Evil Inc.
And recently returned from San Diego Comic-Con, I am his friend Dave Kellett, cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and co-director of Stripped.
And this week's hour of comics advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. And Dave, let's talk comic sponsorships.
Oh, that's right, my friend. We have big news this week. So for the next 10 weeks, ComicLab is going to be sponsored by the great folks over at Wacom. Wacom Cintiqs obviously are a big part of Brad and my career. And so this is delightful, frankly. This is like the exact sponsorship Venn diagram that I've always dreamed of, frankly.
It's like getting sponsored by a number 2 pencil.
It is. It's like a part of your drawing that's so critical to you that you're like, hooray, paper is sponsoring me. Great. The physical embodiment of paper is sponsoring me. No, but it's delightful because you in your studio, I don't remember how many you have, but I have 3 Wacoms, one that Beth works on, one that I work on, and then one that if we ever have a swing artist come in to do flatting or something works on.
Yep. I've got 2. I've got one at the studio and I've got one at home so I can work from home when I'm not at the studio. And I've got these, it's a 12WX in both case. And I'm telling you, this little unit is a workhorse. I mean, I got it back in 2012 as a gift from someone that they were done using it. Scott Kurtz gave it to me and he was using it before that. He said, you're really going to like this. Give it a try. And I got that, and I've been working on it ever since. And what is it now? 2019. That's 7 years, and it was like a hand-me-down at that. Thing just keeps going. It's an incredibly well-built piece of equipment.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I have 3 is that my tank of my oldest one in my studio, I think, is 11 years old now, and it's still going strong. So, the funny thing about this, and Beth and I always joke about this because she listens to a lot of podcasts in the studio. She always laughs when it's like 4 guys on a podcast, but their sponsor for the week is like a jogging bra or something where the sponsor doesn't at all fit. And it's like Dr. Scholl's and it's a murder podcast or whatever. But like there is frankly no better way that we could have lined this up because we legit love our Wacom. So anyway, so a shout out to them for sponsoring the show for the next week. This is a perfect fit. Yes. I'm super excited about this.
Yeah. All I can do is agree wholeheartedly. This is a sponsorship that we can absolutely feel great about because we both have been using their product for years.
Absolutely. So on that note, wacom.com, wacom.com, go check them out. Brad and I wholeheartedly endorse. And now back to Comic-Con because Brad, we have 1,000 things to talk about. So for those that don't know, San Diego Comic-Con, 5-day show in San Diego. It's kind of the big show. It's been going literally for 50 years. So I think that's 1969, if my math is right. And this was the 50th year. And frankly, it has become the big spot for media announcements and fan appearances for stars and actors, and also for cartoonists like you and I, Brad. And so I was exhibiting all 5 days there and had a great show. It was a legit great show. Really? I'm exhausted, but it was super fun.
Because you know me, I'm all about the bottom line. And the first thing I'm going to ask you was, did you cover your costs? Did you make this a worthwhile convention experience?
So this is, okay. There's a whole panoply of reasons why I like to do Comic-Con. There's a bunch of networking. There's people that I get to meet. There's fans and friends and family from all over the world that I get to meet. They're only there. They don't go anywhere else. But I would not do it unless I make money. And so the good news for this year, because I just finished doing the numbers last night, And San Diego is a very expensive show to exhibit at. And I was able to net somewhere between 3 and 4 times my costs at San Diego Comic-Con. So I am very happy with how the show went.
Holy cats. Okay, so what was your cost? You had the cost of the booth. Did you have a hotel?
I stay with family down there, so
good.
That is a big savings because the hotel cost down there can get real expensive. But the booth is not cheap at San Diego Comic-Con. Those things are pricey.
Right.
And I have a corner booth, which that has extra costs, but gives me another 10 linear feet of booth space, so I love it.
Yeah.
And then for me, the big costs are the booth, the food, gas, which is just down from LA. It's not that much. And then every year I try to up my game a little bit with a purchase of this or that for the booth, which was, in this case, just a couple $100. But anyway, so all that added up, the sales for the show were great. As always, I got super nervous on Thursday and Friday because sales slowed down. And I'm like, oh no, it's the end of the world. Oh, it's all ending. This is how I go down. Oh no, I had a good run. And then Beth had to remind me, she's like, no, this is exactly what happened last year. We're going to do great come Saturday, come Sunday. And sure enough, the sales picked up. I'm like a dog with a short-term memory. I'm like, no, Beth, it's all over. It's ruined. I'm destroyed. She's like, nope, calm down. It's going to be, sales are going to be fine.
You got the memory of a goldfish just swimming around in your bowl.
Yeah, it's like I'm literally living the movie Finding Dory when I'm at Comic-Con. Like, oh no, it's all over. And then anyway, so Saturday and Sunday saved the day, and it was a great show. It was, Brad, I just redid the numbers because I thought it was 400, but the final numbers last year was my best show ever.
Yeah.
And I beat it this year by $280. So
wow.
It was now my best San Diego Comic-Con ever.
That's amazing. Okay, so I because I'm curious about these things, what was your best seller? What was the thing that flew off of the table?
Well, Brad, as you can hear from the paper crinkling, I actually have my now printed out QuickBooks invoice from the show because I do it via invoicing. Pugs Unleashed was my best seller. 73 copies of that puppy went. Puppy,
nice.
See what I did?
Of that puppy. I see what you did there.
So that one did gangbusters and then followed up very quickly by some coasters that I do kind of exclusively only at the show, and then pins, which are tremendous sellers. Pins are one of those things where it's a frictionless transaction. Like I'll be signing for someone and literally other people will just be handing me money going, I took these 3 pins, here's $30. Yeah. And you're like, oh, all right, that was so easy. I was not even involved in that sale, that kind of thing.
And I continually try to get my head around these pins. $10 a pin, and they're paying for it. They don't balk at paying $10 for a pin.
Well, I think what I'm sensing here is that Brad Geiger is a cheapo. So you're like, I would not pay $10 for a pin.
No.
Can I tell you? I kind of agree. Life is expensive, and I'm super cheap about things. But the cost of goods for those are very affordable, and it's a great profit margin, and people are happy to pay it because the kind of accepted price point for pins at the show is $10. In fact, I was walking around and like some quote unquote exclusive pins were like $20, and I was like, boy, that's a lot of money for a pin.
Wow. I got to tell you, so I did Webcomics Confidential, which is a video series that I was doing exclusively for webcomics.com.
Right.
And I decided after talking to Jake Parker when we were all together at your house in Los Angeles, I decided he kind of talked me into ramping up what I'm doing on YouTube. So I kind of put some more time into my YouTube channel, and I'm releasing some of the older webcomics.com Webcomics Confidential episodes on YouTube. So they're still a couple years old, but they still, they everything that is on there is still stuff that I kind of stand behind, except the one that went live today. I'm listening to it as it's premiering on YouTube, and I start going off on these pins. And I'm like, the price point is too high and nobody's going to buy these things. These pins are going to be a flash in the pan. That's going to be horrible. Don't get suckered. And I had to put a little editor's note in there and saying, history has not been kind to me on the pin issue. You should probably not listen to what I have to say on that topic.
That's funny. So Grandpa explains at Comic-Con to everybody. I don't understand any of this.
No, I remember when this was all farms.
Well, speaking of Jake Parker, I should give a continuing shout out to he and to Sam Logan of Sam and Fuzzy, who have taught me the value of commissions at shows. Which if you remember, Brad, from when we used to table together at shows, people would come up and be like, "Hey, Dave, do you do commissions?" And I'd be like, "Nope. It's just what I have books and I have whatever prints and T-shirts, and that's it. I don't want to do commissions at a show." And Sam and Jake taught me the error of my ways, and it ended up being somewhere around $1,500 of commissions for San Diego Comic-Con. So a doff of the cap to those two for teaching me that I was wrong. I was actively wrong for about a decade there, that I should have been doing commissions that whole time. So,
how much do you charge for a commission?
It varies. It varies everything from like $5-10 for a quick one if it's something specific, to there were people that would come up with very specific black and white or gray or color requests, and so those can get as high as like $350 or so, that kind of thing.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense. So do you have a price sheet sitting up, or is it ongoing negotiation?
I do. Beth made up a nice little like basically an ordering sheet saying like, is it one character black and white? Is it two characters black and white? Is it one character color, two characters color? Is it even more complicated than that? Is it a personalized thing that involves photo reference from you or your dog or your whatever it is?
Oh, wow.
And so,
this is a really great sheet. Yeah, I'm loving this.
Yeah, and then they leave their email and or text number so that when it's ready at the show, it can be picked up. And then any special instructions about like who they'd like it made out to, that kind of stuff. So it's becoming more of a streamlined operation. It's kind of nice actually to have a little order sheet, because you can also give the order sheet away to someone and they can stew on it. Because for some people, it's like, that's a serious investment,
Yeah. And they can think about it and think about what they want to include in the commission and think about variables.
Exactly. And some people make the decision right there, then and there. They're like, yep, I want this. Here's my money. I'm paying you cash or whatever, or I'm paying your credit card. I don't care. And then they walk away, right? But then there's other people that like, you hand out 8 of them, of those order sheets, and maybe 2 of them come back, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's fine by me. It's literally just an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. But anyway, so that was a doff of the cap to those two guys for teaching me about the value of commissions, because that added to the bottom line, which is great.
So another thing that probably made this year at Comic-Con International a little bit sweeter was the fact that your lovely wife was there.
Hey, yes. Gloria came down for the show, which was delightful. She has not been down to Comic-Con for many a moon. It's not really her bag, in fairness to her. The crowds, she's not a big fan of crowds, and pop culture like you and I enjoy is not really her cup of tea, even though she's a showrunner. But there are shows that go down there that she enjoys. And so I got to tell you, though, Brad, when I go... So me as a cartoonist, my Comic-Con experience is very different from my wife as a television showrunner's experience of Comic-Con. It is night and day. So let me paint the picture to you of the average cartooning event that we go to post-show, right? It'd be hey, Brad, you want to go to a cartooning party? We're having a meetup. And you're like, yeah, Dave, I'd love to go. Great, we're going to get a can of beans over a fire. I got some old Ripple. We got some Ripple we're going to sip on. We're going to sit here on a street corner and cook these beans and drink this Ripple, right? Like that's in a nutshell what a cartoonist get-together is at Comic-Con. But then my wife is like, oh, hey, by the way, are you busy tonight? And I go, after the show? No, why? What's up? She's like, oh, we're going to go to the Entertainment Weekly party. And I was like, all right, sure. Let's go to that. So, by the way,
that sounds fun too. I mean, I did have my eye on a can of pork and beans, but we can do that too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess and then you just see me slowly put down my can of pork and beans. I'm like, I guess I can go to the Entertainment Weekly party.
Now, does at the Entertainment Weekly party, do they have any trash cans with lit trash garbage in them burning?
No,
do they have any
it's
of those?
very different from our cartoonist parties. This is why I wanted to go through. There's very few riding the rails. There's nothing of that happening.
Nobody with the fingers cut out of their gloves?
There was a pool that had floating globes on it that said HBO and Watchmen on it, so that was fun. The globes look like it cost more than my first car, but that's all right. Anyway, so we go to the party, and it was delightful. We got to hang out with the cast and the showrunners of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, who were all really fun. I got to meet Lin-Manuel Miranda, who was very nice. We got to watch Tessa Thompson danced with Taika. I always do his name wrong. The guy that's directing Thor.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
they
were delightful to watch.
Guy.
I didn't get to meet them, but they were delightful. They were cutting a rug over in a corner. Anyway,
is he a good dancer? He seems like the way he directs movies, he seems like he'd be a good dancer.
You know what? My read of him from a distance, and again, I did not meet him, but he just seems like he's a suave, delightful, comfortable in his own skin fella, is what it seems like to me. Anyway, I met a lot of people from What We Do in the Shadows, which is one of my wife and I's favorite shows. That was fun.
Yep.
And anyway, so the party was really fun. But here's the difference about everybody at that party was like, it was as though someone had teleported a party from LA down to Comic-Con, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, the look was different. Everybody had really nice, expensive shoes on. Everybody's shirts were pressed and hair was done, and everybody smelled good. Meanwhile, I'm coming from the show floor, so I look and smell like I've been curled up in Andre the Giant's armpit all day long, right?
Yeah, you've got con crud, hanging from your skin at this point.
Oh, yeah, there's just a thin layer of slime on my skin all across my body, and I smell like a hot dog that's been sitting in the sun, right? And so, anyway... I also, Brad, I had a backpack because I was coming from Comic-Con, so I had a backpack. So I'm at this freaking fancy party, and I'm like, oh, this is Lin-Manuel. Hi, I'm a guy with a backpack. I'm a dork. I'm just a big dork with a backpack at this party. Oh, yes, I would love a Mai Tai. I'm the one with the backpack. Sure, I'm holding a Mai Tai with a backpack.
Oh my God! Yeah, you can't. There's a lot of stuff you can come back from, but you can't hide a backpack.
You can't.
Right out there.
So it was a super crowded party, and they had these like handmade churros that they were making fresh over in the corner. Which, by the way, none of the actors were eating, but this old cartoonist was heading right over to the churros.
You bet your boots. So that beats baked beans any day of the week.
Exactly. So imagine me with this freaking big backpack trying to cut through the cast of Flash. Like, sorry, thin people, I got to get to the churros. Excuse me. Backpack coming through. Backpack coming through. Backpack.
The good thing about those kind of people is you can knock them over real easy. I mean, a cartoonist has a little bit more heft, but these people you can kind of brush them aside, right?
And here's the shocker: Flash wasn't that fast getting out of the way. I was like, "Excuse me, I gotta get to these churros." He was moving slow. I was like, I feel like this is false advertising.
That's just because you were in the Speed Force when you got those churros in your sight. Everything else looks slower.
That's the way to knock me into the Speed Force, is just say, "Hey, Dave, how about some dipped sugar dough things?"
Yeah. Now it that crowded, and you got a backpack, so every time you turn around, you're bopping somebody with your backpack, right?
Oh, that's the thing. Is like I was like, sorry, whatever the actor is. Sorry for spilling your drink, but because of my stupid big backpack. Anyway, I just felt like a 9-year-old at a party because I had this big backpack on, and I had comfortable shoes on because I was at Comic-Con all day, and everyone else is in like $7,000 Italian loafers or whatever.
Of course. And how long until you and Gloria were able to meet up at the end of the night at a designated corner 3 blocks away from the party?
Well, that's the thing is we got with Gloria, so we went to go see because Melissa Fumero is a friend of Gloria. We went to go see the Brooklyn Nine-Nine panel, but I am used to the panels being like I have to wait in a line. It takes forever to get in. But like the Comic-Con experience with my wife is totally different because I was like, she's like, I'll just show up a couple minutes before the panel. I was like, I don't know that we'll get in. She's like, don't worry about it, champ. I got this sorted. And literally there's front row seats waiting for us. And I was like, this is not the Comic-Con that I'm used to. This is a very different Comic-Con. So anyway, long story short.
Don't worry about it, Chief, she says with a little tussle of the hair. We got this all under control. We've got it down.
Yeah, you know what, Scooter? Don't worry about it. Mama's got this handled.
I think I want to do every comic convention with your wife. Now I'm definitely coming next year.
Just make sure she's there and not me, because if it's me, you get the can of beans. If it's her, you get to meet the cast of the next Marvel movie. That's the trick. But anyway, San Diego. So the thing that I wanted to talk about too about the show is as always, I think I mentioned on this the last show, but there's a lot of conversations that can't be replicated in email and can't be done over the interwebs. And so for that, I was so thankful to Comic-Con for everyone. Like Australian readers and listeners, frankly, came up, and Kiwi and German. We had Swedish, we had French, we had a lot of Australians. I don't know what it is with us in Australia, but Brad, we did great with Australians coming up, thanking us for the podcast.
We kill with the Australians.
Anyway, but the one thing I wanted to mention, and this is more for other professionals, Brad, than for readers. So I want to make that very clear. This is not for listeners. This is not for readers. This is for other professionals. I want to just review a small bit of decorum, which is that when someone has paid for a booth and is actively trying to both make their money back and, or God forbid, make a profit at the show, it's not the time to hang out and talk.
Oh, you mean you got barnacled? You got a booth barnacle.
Well, yeah, but what killed me is I don't mind readers. I don't mind listeners. I don't mind fans barnacling even. But it's other pros that should know better. And so I just wanted to review that, like, you can't keep coming back. You can't hang out. Even if it's a slow moment, that cartoonist is actively trying to make it into a not slow moment, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. If anybody should understand this, it's another pro. It's another cartoonist should get this.
Right. And so I think what happens is the other cartoonist or pro adjacent or whatever it is goes, I didn't pay for anything and I'm bored. I'm going to go talk to the cartoonist that I know. And you're like, yeah, but I'm not bored and I've paid a lot of money for this booth. So please, let's talk after the show. Let's have a beer after the show. Not right now. I'm signing. And so just a bit of decorum, because we've talked about booth barnacles before, but this one was just for other pros and journalists and adjacent folks. Just be conscious of the fact that this is a working environment for the people that have paid for a booth, you know?
Absolutely.
Hey, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we're going to tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
When you do, you're going to get hours and hours of podcasts that we've recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on ComicLab topics.
And access to our exclusive Discord server, which is a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And listen, if you can't swing a pledge this month, we get it. No worries.
Yeah, listen, you can still support the show by rating us wherever you get your podcasts.
Just leave a 5-star review and a few kind words.
That, along with mentions on social media, is incredibly helpful.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics. So, Brad, one other thing I got to tell you is because family was down at Comic-Con this year, which they haven't been ever before, for the first time ever, not ever, but the first time in like 10 or 15 years, like a long, long time, I walked the show floor at the height of the population filling up at the show, if that makes sense. Like midday.
Really?
Like normally I quote unquote walk the show floor at like the hour before the show starts when no one is in Comic-Con and the air conditioning is cranked up really high and it's really pleasant to walk around and you just walk on your way to your booth, right? Like that's what I normally do. And you get a sense of like, oh, here's what the Marvel booth has today. Here's the Lego booth. Here's, you visit your friends on your way to your booth. And then you set up and you start the day. And you frankly, for me anyway, I don't leave the booth again until the end of the day.
For the rest of the day, you're there. You're entrenched.
And maybe that sounds funny to you, but my attitude is I am here to work this booth, so I'm going to work this booth for the entire 9 to 10 hours or whatever, right? So,
my attitude was always I'm renting this space by the hour. And so if I'm not here every hour that I'm renting the space, I'm throwing money away.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I know there are cartoonists that love to go around and do stuff, and it's like, that is not me. I'm here to make money. I'm away from my family, so I'm making money. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so I pre-buy coffees for the booth. I actually brought an espresso machine this year for the booth.
You brought an espresso machine for the booth? Really?
I brought an espresso machine to the booth, and I got to tell you, the people in the booth next to me were like, "Well, look at you, fancy pants, making an espressos." And I was like, "I don't F around when it comes to Comic-Con. I'm gonna be rare to go."
That's great. Did you enjoy that, having an espresso machine?
So Beth and I, over the last couple of years, have been refining the back of the booth. We kind of have as a little green room, if you know that concept, where no one can see you back there. You can take a break if you need a quick 5 to 10 minute break to eat lunch, or you can make a coffee or get a glass of water or just put your feet up for a second.
Yeah.
And it's a really nice way to do it, right? So I have that in the background. But anyway, long story short, I never leave the booth. Like I use the restroom and that's it. I don't leave the booth. This year, because family was here, I wanted to tour them around Comic-Con.
Right.
So I took like 4 or 5 hours away from the booth on Friday or Saturday and walked the show floor. And when I got back, Beth said that my face looked more shell-shocked than she has ever seen me look.
You had just dropped into the 1,000-yard stare. Is that it?
You know those guys, those video footage of the guys from World War I that had just shell shock, and they have the stare off into eternity, and they don't come back for like 6 months. They're like just staring comatose. Like I had that look on my face because I was like, this is what it is. This is what Comic-Con is. This is terrible.
This is what it's become. What have we unwrought on the universe?
What hath comics wrought? I unfortunately walked the whole length of the show.
Oh my God.
And it takes you like an hour and a half to get from one end to the other because there's a thing in your way called 130,000 other humans.
Yeah.
And you can't get around them.
It's never easy.
And you can't say, excuse me, and they're all pausing to take a photo with Deadpool every 2 feet, and everybody's got big backpacks like me at the Entertainment Weekly party. Actually, that's what it was. It was 130,000 other versions of me hitting the cast of Flash with my backpack trying to get to the churros.
It was your cosmic comeuppance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, you're going to do that to the Flash, huh? Well, bang, bang, bang,
bang.
Let's
see how you like it.
Here's a backpack full of Marvel mystery boxes right to the face.
Did you take your kids up and down the aisles? Is that what you were doing?
I did, and that's miserable. It's all miserable.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, so my littlest one, that's the one where I'm at the stage, Brad, and it's been probably a decade since you've had this, but where a slip of the hand or you miss them for 10 seconds and you have a panic unlike anything else in your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's like, where did he go? And they're at that size where they can hide real easy without meaning to hide, you know?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So there was a lot of anxiety and sweating and uncomfortableness and small stepping through a crowd of 130,000 people. So anyway, I'm gonna do a really big hearty didn't enjoy it for walking around San Diego Comic-Con.
Now, I'm at the other end of the spectrum. When we do visit a comic convention, I'll just give them each a small amount of money, tell them that's your amount for the day. You buy whatever you want with it, whether it's food, snacks, souvenirs, comics, books, whatever. But that's your money. And now go and and have fun. And if you want to meet up or if you want to do something together, that's great. But if you want to be your own person, that's great too. And it's been much, much less stressful, especially at Wizard shows, because now they usually have at least one vendor that's selling beer. So Dad goes over, grabs himself a beer, and unwinds for a little while.
So you're at the magic age, because sending teenage boys out into a crowd, that's like there's no way to feel better. Those guys will throw high elbows all day long, like they're ready to go.
That's right. That's right. There's not a backpack built that is gonna slow them down.
So I got to tell you a funny story, speaking of throwing high elbows. So Ryan North came by, Ryan North of Dinosaur Comics, and as it's always delightful to see him. He's a delightful human being. But he goes, "Oh, I had a very different interaction with your kids this time, Dave." And I said, "Oh, how so?" He goes, "Well, the last time you had warned me, you said, oh, well, we're in a bit of a punching phase." Because I think it was 2 at that time or something.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, really? Did I say that?" You go, "Yep." And Ryan goes, "And I thought you were just joking, but nope, right in the crotch. He shot me right in the crotch as soon as I saw him." So he's like, "So I have to say, this is a markedly better interaction with your children this time around."
Yeah, and poor Ryan, he is a tall guy, so he can't escape it.
Yeah, I think it was right at the swivel and pivot level for throwing a punch. So anyway, good work on my part as a dad, raising great ones. That's what I'm doing. But so walking the show floor, I have increased sympathy for folks that do it for 5 days in a row. I mean, no wonder you're exhausted. No wonder your back hurts. No wonder you're sweating like a fiend, because it's tricky. It's emotionally exhausting to go through that.
Yeah. Now, was this, I know that they've been moving towards this. Did they have stuff outside of the convention center as well that was comic convention related? Like, aside from the sci-fi taking over the restaurant, which is kind of, like hamming it up. Did they have like actual convention stuff outside the convention center?
Yes, they had way more stuff this year. And
Really?
Hollywood has adapted a new phrase that I actively hate. In fact, I was telling my friends who they're movie directors, and they're like, yeah, we've got to go to our activation. That's what it's called.
Activation.
They're no longer called like installations or, like an event or whatever it is. Like, if The Walking Dead has an event outside or a place, the actual thing now, Hollywood is calling them activations. And I hate it. I feel like that's such a kludge of a word from English. It's activation.
It really is. It really, and it makes me wonder what's being activated. Like it sounds almost like something passive is happening that I don't have control in, and then when I leave, it's going to be activated. Yeah, I don't like it.
I for a lot of reasons I don't like it. To me, it sounds like a credit card that's not currently working. You have to call in and
you got to activate your credit card.
Yeah, you got to turn it on. So every Hollywood person that I met down there or saw down there, like, yeah, I got to go to my activation now. And it was like, it just seems like a crap word. I don't like it. Activation.
It also sounds something that a Scientologist might do. You got to excuse me. I got to leave. I've got to go to my activation. I'm going for theta level 12.
Yeah, I got to level up on my activation.
Yeah.
So it was not a word that I was a fan of. But that, anyway, to answer your earlier question, that has spread further and further out into San Diego. And in fact, they have pedestrianized. Remember last year, that was the big thing, is that they pedestrianized not only the road in front of Comic-Con, which was a great, great move. They pedestrianized probably 3 or 4 blocks up into Gaslamp.
Oh, really?
It makes the show, Brad, I cannot tell you what a night and day difference it makes for the show. It's so much more comfortable. It's way safer, which is probably why they actually did it. The police they don't have to yell at people constantly to get back on the curbs.
Right.
And so it's so pleasant. And anyway, now it's also filled with activations, which is a word that I hate. So that goes on. But here's the thing, though. From my perspective, San Diego, from the perspective of my booth, I mean, San Diego felt a little quieter this year.
Really?
In the way that it hasn't for the last 5 or so. Brad, I've been going to Comic-Con now for 20 or 21 years, something like that.
Yeah, easily.
And so I remember it, as do you, from just before the Hollywood companies started to throw millions at Comic-Con, when it was still like, oh yeah, Warner Brothers has a booth, but it's just another 20 by 20 booth, and nothing special is at it, right?
Yeah.
Now they have these 200 by 200 square foot booths that are 70 feet in the air and have the Batman symbol on some kind of plasticine build out, right? Like, it's just gigantic, right? But anyway, what I was getting at this year is that because Disney, you can tell, is making an active choice, because they have the Star Wars, whatever that thing is called, Star Wars Force or whatever, Star Wars event, whatever that thing is that they do every year. Yep. And then they have D23 for all the Disney movies. I actively feel Disney pulling away a little bit from Comic-Con. Not completely. They obviously still made announcements there, but there were no trailers that were huge there. There were no gigantic Marvel Avengers panels that were there, right? Mm-hmm. And that does have a difference on the feel of the show. Not huge, but I would say it felt like a 2 to 7% slower show in terms of media events.
That's interesting.
And I feel like that can only benefit us as cartoonists.
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing I said to my wife over the weekend. It's like, I was expecting Disney to pull all of their Marvel stuff, like the Marvel movie announcements. They were making those all week. And I said, I thought that they would save that for D23. And as you pointed out, as we were talking in the run up to the show, they were announcements, but they weren't necessarily trailers.
Right.
In other words, they made a fraction of the type of splash that they would have otherwise made in Hall H. People have been lined up to see the first scenes of the Loki miniseries, for example. And that didn't happen. They just announced that there was going to be and showed you that god-awful logo that they came up with.
Zing, Brad
Holy
Geiger.
moly. That's just as a side, that was such a swing, because you had the Thor Love and Thunder logo, which I thought was an absolute masterpiece for the look they were going with. That Flash Gordon kind of airbrushed on the side of a van look. Just amazing. And then Loki literally looked like a 10-year-old put it together.
You know who I honest to God think they hired to do the Loki logo?
Who?
The French champagne.
Sir, Orson Welles, we can have you sit down for a second. We just need you to design. Looks like you've had a lot of wine, sir, but if you could just design the Loki logo. I haven't used that button in a while. That's a fun button for the podcast.
Oh my God, that's wonderful. Yeah, I think you're right. I think whoever came up with that was dipping into the what was the brand of that wine? I don't want to mislabel it.
Paul Masson, was that it?
Paul Masson. They were dipping into the.
They
Paul
were
Masson.
dipping into the Paul Masson. I think the marketing meeting for that Loki was like, hey guys, what if, just for fun, what if we designed a bad logo?
You know what it looked like to me is that they designed 3 or 4 rather really good logos that they liked, couldn't decide which one, so they took a letter from each.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're not wrong. Maybe it's going to be a transitioning logo as he travels through different points in time. I don't know, but it was not the greatest. But anyway, so the point though that I wanted to make is that in a way that I can only describe as what seemed better, it felt like a slightly quieter, I don't want to overemphasize that it's not a lot, but a slightly quieter Comic-Con that I feel like harkens back to what we would experience 15 years ago, maybe.
Wow.
And in a way that only benefits cartoonists. Now, not a lot.
Wouldn't that be nice? I mean, dream with me here for a minute. Wouldn't that be nice if Disney and some of the other big media giants continued that trend? And the same way we're seeing it happening with streaming services, right? Everybody pulling out of Netflix and doing their own streaming. Returning San Diego to the way it was 10 or 15 years ago would not be a horrible thing from our standpoint, right?
I would love it.
Even if the crowds were a little bit lower as a result, there's still going to be plenty of people there. Even if the crowds dropped a little bit, it would still be an amazing show.
Well, and you would get a different kind of fan, because if someone loves Star Wars, they're going to go to Star Wars Celebration. They're not going to go to Comic-Con, and that's okay, maybe, you know? And if someone is really big on the Disney slate, they'll go to D23. They won't go to Comic-Con, and that also is okay, you know?
And then the people who do come to San Diego are those hardcore comics people.
Right. And maybe we'd be able to, I mean, listen, we're dreaming at this point because it's not necessarily going to happen. But I would love the idea if DC had their own custom event, Disney had their own custom event, Star Wars had their own custom event, the video game companies had their own, obviously would have their own. So to me, that would be kind of a returning to the idealized form of Comic-Con, which was, for me, was about 15, 18 years ago. But I get it that's all kind of wishing on a star, and it's probably not going to happen. And there's still a lot of marketing muscle that Hollywood is throwing at Comic-Con. Because especially if you're a mid-sized show or a mid-sized network, you're going to go to Comic-Con. You know, you're not going to get... You're not going to get the Sci-Fi Network having their own con. Like, who's going to go to that? Like,
no, that's a really good question. You're gonna have a certain strata of entertainment that's definitely going to dig in there.
Right. And so that's never going away. And I'm not looking a gift horse, or not. I'm not dreaming on a dream there that's going to happen. It's not. But it did seem a tiny bit quieter on a media front.
Wow.
So anyway, I'll take it. If that's going to happen, I'll take it.
Yeah. We can definitely use a little bit of that.
Right. Exactly.
So any wrap up from San Diego? Any people you met that you'd like that you had a particularly good interchange with? Any good food that you had other than those homemade churros?
For anyone going to Comic-Con next year, just put it on your agenda. There is an amazingly good Cuban restaurant right up the main road of Gaslamp. It's about 3 blocks from Comic-Con, and it has my Cuban in-laws seal of approval as being legit amazing Cuban food.
Really?
So if you ever want to try it, I went there with Dylan McConas and Beth, and we had a delightful meal, really good Cuban food. I would highly recommend that. As far as people I met, I mean, not to sound wishy-washy or Pollyanna-ish, but Brad, I legitimately get such a buzz coming out of the show from the conversations and the kind words. Like, I'm on a high right now from this show, and it's going to last for weeks. It's great. I love it. I love the conversations. It was really nice meeting all of the podcast listeners, especially. Drive continues to amaze me by the kindness people have for that strip. And then Sheldon readers were also a delight. And so I came out of the show just happy, really happy. And the fact that I got to hang out with my wife this year, and the fact that the show made a nice profit, I will absolutely be back next year. And in fact, I actually kind of need you to talk me off the ledge, because there's the tiniest possibility that I could switch from a 10 by 10 corner booth, which gives me 20 linear feet. There's the tiniest possibility, Brad, that I could switch to a 20 by 10 end cap, which would give me 40 linear feet.
Oh.
Now, let me ask you, because these opportunities...
let's think about this.
These opportunities only come up, as you know, with Comic-Con like every decade or so. So do I move up to a 40-foot long booth, Brad?
Okay, so here's how we're going to work this out. Mentally add the cost of that second booth to your costs. What'd you tell me at the top of the show that you made, 4 times cost?
A little bit between 3 and 4 times cost. Yeah.
Okay. So now with that new cost figure that you got to by adding that second booth, how much times cost would you have made, assuming sales flatlined?
Right. Oh, that's a good way to look at it. I would be making... I would have a 2 times cost profit margin.
Now, if I were to tell you that you could go to any convention and make a 2 times cost profit margin, would you say yes or no to that convention?
I might say no to it if it's 5 days.
2 times cost, really?
Well, I might. Here's the thing, though. The way Dave Mauke and I were talking about it was, you just need to make the difference of the additional cost to make it valuable for your mind. You know.
Well, I guess that's kind of where I'm going, because the next step is those additional 20 linear feet are going to work for you, especially since I would imagine you'd have Beth out there handling some sales and stuff, and maybe even one extra person, like an intern or something like that, because you're going to need more than 2 people working that booth.
Here's what I was thinking.
Much space.
Yeah, here's what I was thinking too, and you can tell me whether this is even enticing to you, because I don't know if it is. If I were to go to that 20-foot long booth, it's 2 corner booths, so it's 40 linear feet. Here's what I was thinking I would do. Like 35 feet of it, 32 feet of it would be Dave Kellett. But then every day on a rotating different basis, I would invite a friend in to be the guest artist that day, doing a signing at one of the corners. And they could, maybe I would do it for free, or maybe I would charge just a few $100 so they could have a 1-day signing at Comic-Con.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad, especially if those people were all a good fit for the rest of what you've got on the table. You know, if they were a good fit.
I would find artists whose publishers are already sending them to San Diego. Like they already have a hotel room, they already have a flight, but they're not doing any signings, right?
Yeah.
And I can think of a few offhand from this past weekend that had that. And so I'd be like, hey, if you want to sign at my booth, just bring a sign. We'll have and so I would actually print up signage that would be replaceable, if you know what I mean. Like there'd be a chunk of the sign that could be stuck up with Velcro. Like today's signing is blankety blank kind of a thing.
Yeah, I'm not against that at all. It's not a bad idea.
Because it would also bring their fandom up to my booth, you know?
Right. It's going to have a knock-on effect in terms of bringing people there. You can put them right on the end of that end cap, right? The short end opposite from where you usually sit. They're not going to take up that much room. and they're going to draw people to not only draw people to your area, but it makes you kind of look like a player, because here's Dave Kellett not only doing the Dave Kellett thing, but also hosting other cartoonists. It kind of elevates your stature a little bit.
And if I played my card right, I would actually invite cartoonists that did Tales of the Drive strips, maybe, or stories.
That would be your best case. Yeah, like immediately I'm thinking of people like Dylan McConis and people like that. Maybe Jake comes over for a little bit, or
maybe
whomever.
You or Ryan North or Gurihiru if they're in town from Japan, or somebody like that. So I don't know, but it's also like, me as a business person, and I am nothing if not cautious with my, the thing we always say is make manageable size mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So this is not necessarily a manageable size mistake. Like this could be potentially me just blowing an additional few $1,000s on more booth space out of what might be described as an egotistical move, like thinking I can make more money if I have more booth space.
So here's me playing devil's advocate. Here's the next question you've got to ask, and that is this. How many sales do you think you missed by not having more stuff on the table or more space to exhibit stuff?
Yeah, that's really hard and maybe impossible to quantify. But I think I get what you're getting at, which is maybe none.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my thought too, because at some point, what you're doing is spreading those books thinner and thinner. And a lot of those books, if they're not big sellers, they don't need more room. Like your Sheldon collections. That I'm going to imagine, and I don't know this for a fact, but I'm going to imagine your Sheldon books, the people that come up for those are Sheldon readers. They don't necessarily need to be enticed by the cover. They know they're going to come up and pick up the next Sheldon collection that they're missing.
Right. In fact, they already know which one they want, kind of a thing.
Exactly. Whereas the Pugs, the Pug books and the Drive books, those need to be displayed outwardly because those are going to flag people down. Same thing with those pins of yours, right? Mm-hmm. Those are going to flag people down.
Right.
Now, do you have enough of that category of merchandise, the I got to flag somebody down merchandise, to justify twice as much space?
Yeah. And the answer, Brad, if I'm being honest about it, is probably, or at least maybe not,
Yeah.
So that's why I have a lot of hesitation here, because these kind of opportunities only come up, as I said, like every 8 to 10 years at Comic-Con, because it's kind of like we talked about it before. It's like hot potato, or not hot potato. What's that game where you sit down when the music stops?
Musical chairs.
We've
kind of
been
like through this. You keep forgetting musical chairs.
Oh my God, Brad! I've been 5 days of solidly talking. Just give me a hot second, my friend. It's kind of like a game of musical chairs where everybody sat down in 1974 and nobody gets up until they die.
Okay, but hold on. That's the way it's been for the last 20 years. But, and I know it's not going to be a drastic change over the next year or two, but I am sensing that we are going to see the San Diego economy in a recession. In other words, we're going to see that start to draw back a little bit as Disney and so forth continues to pull out. And it's going to be gradual, but that's the direction it's going. In other words, I don't know that you're going to be able to project the same San Diego rules of thumb that you've had as an exhibitor into the next 10 years.
That's a really good point. I mean, because basically, once I make this move, once I pull this trigger,
yeah,
it's kind of hard to downsize again. I mean, maybe not impossible. If I went to Justin at Comic-Con and said, like, hey, I need to get rid of 10 feet. Can I just keep this side and you guys give away this side? I'm sure they'd be like, oh, yeah, we were happy to do it. But
yeah,
what I'm getting at with this move is that there are certain things career-wise that you only get a chance in rare occasions to sort of level up. And I feel like if Comic-Con is a profitable show for me, and it is, if I want to grow into the next decade of my career, it's sure I would hate to be beating my head against the wall 10 years from now going, I wish I had taken that 20 feet. But frankly, there are pros that are well my superiors who are doing just fine with their 10-foot, 20-foot booths. So maybe I should just relax.
Okay, next thought. Yeah. How many originals do you take?
I take I don't know. I think Beth probably put together 50 originals, maybe 100.
Because if you had a really good way of displaying originals that took up a little bit more room
and made it look special, yeah,
like a reading room type of deal, or that you could play with that space a little bit to give people a chance to come in and page through originals. You'd have to build something for it. But if you had a improved display for originals that allowed people to browse at their leisure, because that's a high ticket item, then I could see that making it worth your while.
Yeah. You know what? You know how some booths have it where the tables divot in so you can step into an experience or that kind of thing?
Exactly what I'm thinking.
So if you had 40 linear feet of table and then you divot in like 8 feet so they can step in to see how the original art will look framed up, they can flip through a book that has it really cleverly displayed and a lot of wood, a lot of leathers, that kind of thing, so it feels quality. Yeah, that could be, because those things are a great profit margin anytime, or even one original sells is the equivalent of 3 to 5 books selling,
Yeah, and then you go around and look at different conventions at how some of the people that are selling animation art cells and things like that, they put up walls and they hang the framed images on the walls. They've got a whole approach to that that you could steal and use for yourself. And if that turned into original art sales, and your originals, they're very, very, they've got that refrigerator quality, right? You can hang them on the fridge because people are going to get it, right? They're easy to entry. And displaying it on walls and stuff like that, framed, and kind of giving the aura that this is a investment in a piece of art that you will proudly hang on the wall. Using that extra space, that could come back in a big bump of money, because, like you just said, those original art sales are going to be big ticket items.
Right. So I think what I would do if I did go to a 40 linear foot booth, which is 20 wide, 10 deep, if I did do that, what I would do is I would make on the ends a very, as you said, call people over end caps of like all the pug stuff in one big display, right? Because that's the stuff that pulls people over that are not necessarily Sheldon or Drive readers. And then all of the center would be Sheldon and Drive stuff with me signing. There would be a much better original art display, a much bigger and fancier looking pin display, because I think by that show next year, I would have like 15 pins. Then there'd be a nice section featuring an artist for the day. And I think, frankly, Brad, let's say you did one day of Comic-Con and you told all your readership, I'm only there on Friday. You only have 10 hours to get a signature from Brad Geiger. That day would be profitable for you, I think, if you thought about it in that regard,
And you're very nice, but remember, a lot of my content is not going to mesh very well with your content.
That's true.
You don't, as much as you're very sweet, you're not thinking about this. I don't know that I would be a good fit, and that's okay. But I'm going to even go further than that. Once you do everything you said up until your penultimate step, the pugs area, the original art area, you've just ran out of room that you were going to use for that artist signing thing.
Oh,
if you're going to do it right, you just ran out of room.
Yeah. Well, listen, I say this to you as a friend, A, because it's an interesting topic, but B, it's fun to talk through because these are the kind of career moves that I hash out with you offline, and so it's fun for people to hear it. But knowing me, I am not a risk taker in big chunks, and this feels like a big chunk risk to me,
Yeah.
So I
agree.
I don't know that this is wisdom to double the size of my booth. So having talked this through, I think most people will find next year at Comic-Con I'm at the exact same table, but that's okay. It's good to consider because these things only come up every 5 to 10 years in terms of an open booth space. It's good to consider it and then make a realistic, logical choice based on hard facts and numbers. Like, this is not worth it, despite what you are feeling is a good move, And
I'm going to put a side bet that 2 years down the road, you get that opportunity again.
You might be right.
If you don't take it, you're going to have another swing at it within 2 years.
You might be right, my friend. You might be right. Well, listen, since it's time to wrap up the show, I want to say a couple things. I want to tell people that next week we are going to be talking about Mad Magazine wrapping up or being folded rather.
And also, we've got to come around on another topic that we did. We're going to come back to the page numbering topic because something very interesting happened. So we'll whet your appetite on that. We're coming back to that one as well.
Right. San Diego kind of dominated the talk today, but next week we've got actually a lot to catch up on. So it's actually the next couple of weeks we've got a lot of stuff to catch up on. Anyway, it's okay that San Diego dominated because that only happens once a year, but we do have a lot to catch up on come next week.
And on that note, I'll tell you that you've been listening to ComicLab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Your hosts have been my friend Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com and the cartoonist of Evil Inc. at evil-comic.com.
And Dave Kellett, the co-director of Stripped and the cartoonist of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com and Drive at drivecomic.com.
And this week's, and for the next 10 weeks, ComicLab is brought to you by the kind sponsorship of the good folks over at Wacom, WACOM.com. And the ComicLab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net. And this episode and all episodes was edited by Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
ComicLab is made possible by your support on patreon.com/ComicLab, so we're going to go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/ComicLab.
I'm going to hit record, and now we're going to go from counting the quick 5. 5, 4, 3, 2.
How'd that sound?
Well, that's better. It had less delay.
Okay.
There was some weird lag on the first recording attempt. It was weird.
Yeah, something like that. It's better just to play it cautious and jump on top of it while you're thinking of it, you know?
Yeah, just because it had a weird lag on your laugh, I would make the joke. Like there was a weird like layover.
Well, a lot of times I got to ask myself, was that a joke?
Oh, what a jerk.
I'm teasing.